Think all food eventually goes bad? Think again. Some foods refuse to just spoil quietly on shelves for years. They don't rely on preservatives, fancy packaging, or trendy survival hype. Instead, they survive because there's nothing for decay to feed on, no moisture, no nutrients, no weak spots for bacteria to sneak in. That's what this video's about. This is part 2, and we're focusing on foods that are chemically stable, historically proven, and often overlooked. Now, quick clarification before we go any further, because never expires gets misunderstood a lot. When we say never expires, we don't mean the food will taste exactly the same in 40 years. It might not. Texture can change, flavor can fade, some foods get harder, some get blander. What doesn't change is safety. Foods that truly don't expire share a few basic traits. They're extremely low in moisture, very low in fat, or the fat is naturally protected, or they're fermented in a way that makes them hostile to spoilage. Now that we have that out of the way, let's dive right into the list. Number 1, dry pasta. Dry pasta is one of those foods people underestimate because it feels ordinary. It's cheap, common, and easy, which makes it easy to dismiss. But from a long-term survival perspective, plain semolina pasta is remarkably stable. It's essentially purified starch with almost no moisture and no fat. That combination removes the two main drivers of food spoilage, microbial growth and rancidity. When stored dry and protected from pests, pasta doesn't go bad in any meaningful sense. Over time, it may become harder or take longer to cook, but its nutritional value remains intact. Calories don't expire. Carbohydrates don't rot when there's no water to support decay. Practically, pasta shines because of how flexible it is under constraint. It can be cooked with minimal seasoning. It pairs with almost anything: beans, canned vegetables, fats, broth substitutes, or even just salt. It stretches limited resources because a small amount expands into a filling meal once cooked. That expansion effect is critical when food availability becomes unpredictable. Pasta is also easy to portion and ration. You can measure it by hand, cook only what you need, and avoid waste. In group or family scenarios, that predictability helps prevent conflict and anxiety around food distribution. Everyone understands what a portion looks like. Number 2, cornmeal. Cornmeal has fed people through shortages, migrations, wars, and depressions for centuries, and it did so without modern packaging or preservatives. Properly dried cornmeal is low in oil compared to whole corn products, which is why it resists rancidity when stored correctly. The enemy of grain storage is fat oxidation, and cornmeal avoids most of that risk. In disasters, cornmeal earns its place because it's adaptable. It can be boiled into porridge with just water. It can be baked into flatbreads. It can thicken soups, stews, or broths that would otherwise feel nutritionally thin. That thickening ability is especially important when calories are scarce, but liquids are available. Cornmeal is also forgiving. You don't need precise temperatures or equipment to make it edible. Even rough cooking produces usable food. That matters when fuel is limited or cookware is improvised. Unlike refined flour, cornmeal doesn't demand yeast, precise kneading, or controlled rising conditions. From a survival standpoint, cornmeal provides psychological comfort as well as calories. Warm porridge in cold conditions stabilizes body temperature and morale at the same time. In prolonged stress, warm, simple foods help prevent appetite loss, which is common when routines collapse. Another overlooked advantage is digestibility. Cornmeal is generally easy on the stomach, especially when people are stressed, dehydrated, or adapting to new food patterns. That reduces secondary problems like gastrointestinal illness, which can be dangerous when medical care is limited. Number 3, whole dry beans: black, pinto, kidney, navy. Whole dry beans don't spoil, they age. That distinction is important. Over time, beans harden and take longer to cook, but they do not rot, grow mold internally, or become unsafe when stored dry. Their structure protects them. Their low moisture content prevents microbial activity. Given enough cooking time, they remain fully edible decades later. In disaster conditions, beans are one of the most efficient ways to store protein without refrigeration. Protein is often the first macronutrient to disappear when supply chains break, and beans quietly solve that problem. They also provide fiber, minerals, and slow-burning carbohydrates that keep blood sugar stable. Yes, older beans take longer to cook, but that's a planning issue, not a safety issue. Soaking longer, pressure cooking, or simply allowing extended simmering makes them usable. In return, you get dense nutrition from a shelf-stable food that doesn't depend on cans, seals, or industrial processing. Beans also pair naturally with other long-life foods. Combined with grains like pasta or cornmeal, they form complete protein profiles that support long-term health. That's not theoretical nutrition science, it's how entire cultures survived on limited food diversity for generations. Number 4. Split peas. Split peas are one of the most stable legumes humans have ever relied on, and there's a reason they appear again and again in famine histories. Once dried and split, peas lose almost all the conditions that allow food to degrade. They contain very little fat, almost no moisture, and a dense carbohydrate protein structure that resists spoilage for decades when kept dry. In disaster situations, split peas shine because they cook faster than whole beans. Fuel is often more valuable than food during long-term disruptions, and anything that reduces cooking time is an advantage. Split peas don't require soaking. They soften with simple boiling, making them usable even when water and heat are limited. Nutritionally, they provide more than people expect. Split peas deliver protein, slow-digesting carbohydrates, and fiber in a single ingredient. That combination keeps people full longer and prevents energy crashes that lead to poor decision-making. In prolonged instability, steady energy matters more than high-calorie bursts. Another advantage is digestibility. Compared to many legumes, split peas are easier on stressed digestive systems. When people are dehydrated, anxious, or eating unfamiliar combinations, gut issues can become debilitating. Split peas reduce that risk while still delivering nutrition. Number 5. White flour. White flour lasts because everything that spoils has been removed. The wheat germ and bran, the parts that contain oils, are stripped away during refining. What remains is mostly starch and protein, both of which are chemically stable when dry. That's why properly sealed white flour can remain edible indefinitely. In emergencies, white flour becomes a foundation rather than a finished food. It's not meant to be eaten alone. It's meant to become something else. Flatbreads, dumplings, thickened stews, simple biscuits, or emergency calories cooked on improvised heat sources, flour enables all of them. The real value of flour in a disaster is control. It allows you to turn water and heat into food. You don't need yeast for survival baking. Unleavened breads cook quickly, require minimal fuel, and provide dense energy. That flexibility keeps families fed even when ingredients are limited. White flour also acts as a thickener. Thin soups and broths become filling meals with just a spoonful. That matters when calories are available, but morale is low. Thick food feels like real food, even when options are limited. From a logistics perspective, flour is compact, easy to store, and easy to divide. It supports rationing without waste, and because it's familiar, people are more likely to eat it consistently instead of hoarding or skipping meals. Number 6. Cornstarch. Cornstarch is yet another one of the most chemically stable food substances you can store. It's almost pure carbohydrate with no fat to oxidize and no protein to break down. As long as it's kept dry and free from contamination, cornstarch does not spoil in any meaningful way. In disasters, cornstarch isn't a meal, it's a multiplier. It turns liquids into food. Soups, gravies, stews, and even watered-down broths become filling with just a small amount. That ability to stretch meals is critical when supplies are limited but not completely gone. Cornstarch also requires very little to be effective. A small container can support dozens of meals. That makes it efficient to store and transport. When weight or space matters, cornstarch delivers value far beyond its size. Another overlooked role is digestibility. Cornstarch-based foods are gentle on the stomach. In emergencies where stress, dehydration, or illness affect digestion, bland starches help people keep calories down without triggering nausea or cramps. It also supports predictable cooking. Cornstarch behaves consistently even with improvised heat. You don't need precise temperatures or tools. That reliability matters when kitchens turn into fires and cookware becomes improvised. Number 7. Arrowroot powder. Arrowroot powder is another pure starch, and its stability rivals cornstarch. It contains virtually no fat or protein, which means there's nothing present to degrade over time. Kept dry, arrowroot remains edible indefinitely. What sets arrowroot apart is how it behaves under stress conditions. It thickens at lower temperatures and remains stable in acidic foods, which makes it more forgiving than many other starches. When cooking environments are unpredictable, forgiveness matters. Arrowroot is especially valuable for people with sensitive digestion. It's often used in medical and recovery diets because it's easy to absorb and gentle on the gut. In disaster scenarios, that makes it ideal for children, the elderly, or anyone recovering from illness or dehydration. Like cornstarch, arrowroot turns liquids into nourishment. Thin soups become sustaining meals. Broths gain substance. Even small amounts improve satiety and energy stability. Arrowroot also stores quietly. It doesn't attract pests easily when sealed. It doesn't off-gas. It doesn't clump permanently if kept dry. It waits until needed. Number 8. Cocoa powder. Pure cocoa powder lasts because it's inhospitable to life. It's extremely dry, naturally bitter, and contains compounds that suppress microbial growth. When kept sealed and away from moisture, unsweetened cocoa powder remains safe for decades, even if its aroma slowly fades. In a disaster, cocoa isn't a survival calorie, it's a morale stabilizer. That distinction matters more than people realize. Stress, fear, and monotony erode decision-making long before hunger does. Small comforts that break routine and restore normalcy have outsized psychological impact. A warm cocoa drink can calm nerves, improve sleep, and restore a sense of control in otherwise bleak conditions. Cocoa also pairs well with other long-lasting foods. Mixed with stored sugar or honey, it becomes a high-energy drink. Added to porridge or simple breads, it changes flavor without requiring additional ingredients. That variety prevents appetite fatigue, which is a real risk in prolonged shortages. There's also a stimulant effect. Cocoa contains mild amounts of theobromine, which improves alertness without the jitteriness of caffeine. In situations where coffee supplies run out, cocoa becomes a gentler alternative that still lifts energy and mood. Because it's used in tiny quantities, one container lasts an extremely long time. It stores quietly, attracts little attention, and doesn't need rotation. Number 9. Dry soup base. A properly dehydrated soup base is one of the most efficient survival foods available. When all moisture is removed and fats are excluded, these blends become chemically stable for decades. As long as they stay dry, they don't spoil. In disasters, soup bases solve multiple problems at once. They require minimal energy to prepare. Boiling water is enough. That makes them ideal during illness, exhaustion, or fuel scarcity, moments when cooking complex meals isn't realistic. Soup bases also stretch everything else. A handful of grains, legumes, or scraps of vegetables suddenly become a meal when combined with a flavorful base. This turns rationing into nourishment instead of deprivation. There's also a hydration advantage. People often avoid drinking enough water during stress, cold, or illness. Warm soups encourage fluid intake naturally. That reduces dehydration-related fatigue, headaches, and confusion, all of which quietly degrade survival outcomes. Psychologically, soup signals care and recovery. It's what people turn to when sick, cold, or overwhelmed. In long-term emergencies, maintaining that association matters. It keeps families eating regularly and staying functional. Number 10. Dehydrated eggs. Freeze-dried eggs are one of the rare high-protein foods that truly last for decades when sealed properly. Unlike whole egg powder produced with heat, freeze-drying preserves structure and nutrients while removing nearly all moisture, the key factor in spoilage. In survival situations, eggs matter because they complete nutrition. They provide protein, fats, and essential amino acids that pure starch foods lack. Without them, diets become unbalanced quickly, leading to fatigue, muscle loss, and weakened immunity. Dehydrated eggs also restore functionality to food preparation. Baking, thickening, binding, and enriching meals all depend on eggs. Without them, many staple recipes stop working. With them, stored flour, starches, and grains become real meals again. Another advantage is efficiency. Eggs rehydrate quickly and cook fast, saving fuel. That matters when energy sources are limited or unreliable. They also support recovery. Protein helps heal injuries, maintain strength, and regulate hormones during stress. In long-term emergencies, those functions directly affect survival odds. Number 11. Dry seaweed. Seaweed has fed coastal civilizations for centuries because it stores naturally. Sun-dried, it contains almost no moisture, making spoilage extremely unlikely when kept sealed. What makes seaweed valuable in disasters isn't calories, it's micronutrients. Seaweed provides iodine, potassium, magnesium, and trace minerals that are difficult to replace with land-based staples. These minerals support thyroid function, nerve signaling, and energy regulation. In long-term reliance on grains and starches, mineral deficiencies quietly emerge. Fatigue, weakness, and mental fog appear without obvious cause. Seaweed interrupts that process with minimal storage space and preparation effort. It also adds flavor. Umami-rich seaweed makes bland food more appealing, which encourages consistent eating. That matters more than people expect during extended stress. Seaweed rehydrates easily, cooks quickly, and can be eaten dry in small amounts. It stores compactly and doesn't require rotation. In survival terms, it delivers more benefit per gram than almost any food on this list. Number 12. Soy sauce. Naturally brewed soy sauce doesn't spoil because it's already fermented, salty, and acidic. Microbes that cause food poisoning simply cannot survive in it. When sealed, soy sauce remains safe indefinitely. In disasters, soy sauce functions as more than seasoning. It provides sodium, which is a critical electrolyte lost through stress, sweating, and dehydration. In diets dominated by starches and legumes, sodium deficiency becomes a real problem. Because soy sauce is used sparingly, a single bottle can last years. It enhances flavor without consuming resources, which keeps people eating regularly instead of skipping meals out of boredom. Fermentation also provides amino acids that improve nutrient absorption. This makes basic foods more biologically useful even when calories are limited. Number 13. Fish sauce. Fish sauce is one of the most shelf-stable foods humans have ever produced. Properly fermented and sealed, it does not spoil. In fact, it continues to mature. High salt concentration, low pH, and complete fermentation create an environment where harmful microbes cannot survive. This is why unopened fish sauce is often described as a true forever food. In disaster scenarios, fish sauce functions as far more than a condiment. It provides concentrated sodium, trace minerals, and amino acids derived from broken down fish proteins. When diets become repetitive and low in diversity, these nutrients help maintain nerve function, hydration balance, and muscle activity. Fish sauce also transforms the otherwise bland survival food. A few drops can turn plain rice substitutes, legumes, soups, or starch-based meals into something palatable. This matters because appetite fatigue leads to skipped meals, weakness, and poor decision-making long before food runs out. Because it's used in very small amounts, one bottle lasts an extremely long time. It requires no cooking, refrigeration, or rotation. It stores quietly, attracts little attention, and pairs with nearly every long-lasting staple food. Fish sauce doesn't look like survival food. That's exactly why it works so well when survival becomes long-term and psychological endurance matters as much as calories. Number 14. Nutritional yeast. Inactive nutritional yeast is a food, not a supplement, and when kept dry, it remains stable indefinitely. Without live cultures, moisture, or fats to degrade, it simply doesn't spoil. Its structure stays intact as long as humidity is controlled. In disaster conditions, nutritional yeast fills a nutritional gap that starch-heavy storage diets create. It provides complete protein, including essential amino acids that support muscle maintenance, immune response, and tissue repair. That's rare in plant-based, shelf-stable foods. Beyond nutrition, nutritional yeast adds flavor. Its savory umami profile makes simple foods more satisfying. When diets narrow, flavor becomes a tool for compliance. People eat more consistently when food tastes good. That consistency supports energy levels and emotional stability. Nutritional yeast also blends easily into soups, porridges, breads, and sauces. It doesn't require cooking, making it valuable when fuel is scarce. A small amount boosts both protein content and taste without increasing preparation time. It stores compactly, has no expiration anxiety, and quietly improves everything around it. In long emergencies, foods that improve the usefulness of other foods are more valuable than standalone calories. Number 15. Waxed hard cheese. Properly waxed hard cheese is one of the few dairy products that can last for decades without refrigeration. The wax coating seals out oxygen, moisture, and contaminants while allowing the cheese to remain chemically stable. In disasters, wax cheese provides fat and protein, which are two macronutrients often missing from long-term storage diets. Fat supports brain function, hormone balance, and energy density. Protein maintains muscle and immune health. Together, they prevent physical decline that starch-only diets accelerate. Cheese also serves morale. Familiar, comforting foods anchor people emotionally. In prolonged stress, that emotional grounding matters. It helps maintain routines, shared meals, and a sense of normalcy. Aged hard cheeses tolerate temperature fluctuations better than soft dairy. They don't require cooking and can be eaten directly or incorporated into simple meals. When the wax is intact, spoilage risk is minimal. Wax cheese doesn't demand rotation or refrigeration, only patience. It sits quietly until needed, then delivers dense nutrition when other options fail. Number 16. Instant mashed potatoes. Plain dehydrated potato flakes last an exceptionally long time when sealed and kept dry. With almost all moisture removed and no fats added, they resist spoilage and remain safe for decades. In emergencies, instant mashed potatoes solve a critical problem: energy efficiency. They require minimal cooking time, little fuel, and very little water. That makes them ideal when resources are limited or when exhaustion makes complex food preparation unrealistic. Potatoes are also gentle on digestion. During stress, illness, or dehydration, digestive systems struggle. Soft, starchy foods like mashed potatoes are easier to tolerate and help maintain caloric intake when appetite drops. Instant potatoes can also be repurposed. They thicken soups, stretch stews, and act as a base for simple breads or patties. This versatility turns limited supplies into multiple meal types. They store compactly, prepare quickly, and deliver comfort along with calories. Number 17. Dry coconut. Unsweetened dehydrated coconut is one of the rare long-term foods that contains fat without being fragile. When properly dried and sealed, its moisture content is low enough to prevent microbial growth, while its saturated fat structure resists oxidation far better than most plant-based fats. This is why coconut has been used historically in tropical regions as a preserved food long before refrigeration existed. In disaster situations, dry coconut becomes valuable because it provides calorie density that most shelf-stable foods lack. Carbohydrates keep you moving, but fat keeps you functioning. It supports sustained energy, body temperature regulation, and nutrient absorption, all of which degrade quickly during prolonged stress or underfeeding. Coconut is also flexible. It can be eaten as is for quick calories, added to grains or legumes to increase energy density, or used in basic cooking to improve both flavor and satiety. In environments where appetite drops due to stress or monotony, fat-rich foods help people feel satisfied with smaller portions. Unlike oils, which eventually go rancid, properly stored dehydrated coconut degrades slowly and predictably. Even as flavor dulls over time, safety remains intact. It requires no fuel, no preparation, and no rotation if stored correctly. In long-term disruptions, foods that quietly supply fat without demanding attention become foundational. Dry coconut fits that role exceptionally well. Number 18, protein powder. Pure protein powders, specifically whey isolate or pea protein, qualify as true long-term foods when kept dry and sealed. With extremely low moisture and minimal fat, they remain chemically stable for decades under proper storage conditions. This is not a supplement argument. This is a macronutrient reality. Protein becomes a limiting factor in long emergencies. Many stockpile diets are heavy in starch but light in complete protein. Over time, this leads to muscle loss, weakness, slowed healing, and immune suppression. Protein powder solves that quietly and efficiently. In disaster conditions, protein powder has 3 key advantages. First, it requires no cooking. Second, it allows precise portioning, which matters when rationing. Third, it can be added to almost anything like water, porridges, flatbreads, or soups without changing preparation methods. Unlike whole protein foods, protein powder is compact. Large amounts of usable nutrition fit into small storage volumes. That matters when space, transport, or concealment are concerns. Even if taste degrades slightly over time, nutritional value does not. The body doesn't care about flavor during survival, it cares about amino acids. Protein powder delivers those reliably, quietly, and without dependency on systems. Number 19. Maltodextrin/dextrose powder. Maltodextrin and dextrose are pure carbohydrate powders with exceptional chemical stability. They contain no fat, no protein, and virtually no moisture, which means there is nothing present that can spoil. Stored dry and sealed, they remain edible indefinitely. In emergencies, these powders become valuable because they provide fast, predictable energy. Stress, illness, cold, and physical labor dramatically increase caloric needs. When people crash from low blood sugar, decision-making and coordination fail quickly. Simple carbohydrates prevent that. Unlike whole grains or legumes, maltodextrin and dextrose require no cooking, no digestion effort, and no fuel. They dissolve in water instantly and are absorbed rapidly. That makes them useful during illness, exhaustion, or dehydration when solid food intake drops. They also serve a medical role. Quick carbohydrates support recovery, prevent fainting, and stabilize energy levels in children, elderly individuals, or injured people. In that sense, they act as a food and a functional energy tool. Because they're neutral in flavor, they can be added to other foods without altering taste significantly. This allows calorie boosting without changing eating habits, a subtle but powerful advantage under stress. They may not look like survival food, but in prolonged hardship, energy control becomes survival control. These powders provide exactly that. 19. Maltodextrin/dextrose powder. Maltodextrin and dextrose are pure carbohydrate powders with exceptional chemical stability. They contain no fat, no protein, and virtually no moisture, which means there is nothing present that can spoil. Stored dry and sealed, they remain edible indefinitely. In emergencies, these powders become valuable because they provide fast, predictable energy. Stress, illness, cold, and physical labor dramatically increase caloric needs. When people crash from low blood sugar, decision-making and coordination fail quickly. Simple carbohydrates prevent that. Unlike whole grains or legumes, maltodextrin and dextrose require no cooking, no digestion effort, and no fuel. They dissolve in water instantly and are absorbed rapidly. That makes them useful during illness, exhaustion, or dehydration when solid food intake drops. They also serve a medical role. Quick carbohydrates support recovery, prevent fainting, and stabilize energy levels in children, elderly individuals, or injured people. In that sense, they act as a food and a functional energy tool. Because they're neutral in flavor, they can be added to other foods without altering taste significantly. This allows calorie boosting without changing eating habits, a subtle but powerful advantage under stress. They may not look like survival food, but in prolonged hardship, energy control becomes survival control. These powders provide exactly that. 20. Whole spices. Whole spices such as cumin seed, coriander seed, mustard seed, cloves, and similar remain edible for extraordinarily long periods. Unlike ground spices, which lose potency and degrade quickly due to exposed surface area, whole seeds protect their essential oils inside intact structures. From a survival perspective, spices are not about luxury. They are about appetite, digestion, and morale. When diets become repetitive, people begin skipping meals even when food is available. That slow calorie deficit weakens the body long before supplies run out. Whole spices help prevent that by sustaining flavor and interest. A simple grain and legume meal tastes completely different with even minimal seasoning. That variation matters psychologically and nutritionally. Many whole spices also support digestion and appetite stimulation. Historically, spices were valued not just for taste, but for their effects on gut function, something that often degrades under stress, dehydration, or poor diet diversity. Whole spices store compactly, require no rotation, and can be used sparingly for years. Even as potency slowly declines, safety does not. In long-term disasters, foods that keep people eating consistently are survival assets. Whole spices don't provide calories, but they protect the willingness to consume them. Now that we're at the end of the list, it's your turn to tell us which of these foods surprised you the most. Take a moment to look at your own pantry. What's already sitting there quietly, waiting for years to come? I'd love to hear your thoughts, what you've tried, and what you'd add to this list in the comments below. And if you want more calm, practical, no-hype advice on stocking food that actually works when time stops cooperating, make sure to hit subscribe.